Okay, so what we want to do is we want to make sure that you get this lined up with the edge of the styrofoam sheeting, just so you get the edge on the back and on the side. So when we take our marker, we're going to be able to draw a straight line right along the edge. And so this is going to basically overlap the tub right to the edge. So this should set just perfectly along that as we go. So it doesn't have to be perfect, but we do want to make sure that it does have the coverage over the bin. So you can see our lines. So now next thing we're going to do is we're going to take a knife and we are going to cut the line straight down. All right, so as you can see, we have our styrofoam sheeting, and there's a lot of styrofoam that's all over the place. But when we put the styrofoam, we want to make sure that we put the shiny part down towards the tub, and it's going to help insulate the water temperature on the inside. But as you can see, it fits just perfectly, and this is the next step. What we're going to have to do is we're going to have to start the process of putting the net cups and drilling holes, get everything prepared for that. Okay, so we have our sheet laid out and put the net cups on top, and this just kind of give you an idea of the layout. And you got to understand that we have to figure out, first off, what exactly is it that you're wanting to grow. You can't just grow a whole bunch of the same thing. You got to think, well, what are you going to eat? What are all the different things that you want to have growing in your garden? And are you going to eat a lot of lettuce, or are you going to grow a greater variety of things? So when you choose lettuce, just for example, it has its own growth space, and so you can't really just grow a whole bunch really tight because it grows up and it grows out, and so you don't want it to grow into the area that you've got a whole bunch from there. So having the three across right here is not exactly going to be the most conducive. So we're going to move them close together, at least open up some space, take one of them out, and so now we've got a total of 2 in this area. Now, of course, this is just an example, but you got to think through this. What does your family need? What does your family want? And as you plant this, you got to take into consideration the spacing. So we pulled it kind of far away from the edge so that there's some area for the roots to grow. And now we got to figure out, well, how are you going to set the hooks or the spacing? So you can take your net cup down and take a marker and draw it around like this, and that'll work. That basically you're getting a general idea. But the other thing that I would suggest, another thing, is actually one of these architect compasses. Basically, you get the exact measurement and you draw a circle all the way around that. And that obviously works really, really well if you're going to use a knife or other types of things. But the thing that I personally would recommend is actually using a hole saw. Now, we have 3-inch cups, and so we would recommend going and getting a 3-inch hole saw. Now, the hole saw is going to be the most accurate because it's quick, it's simple, and the net cups will drop right into the space that you have cut out. So you think through what it is you want your family to eat, how much of each that you're going to grow, and then do it together. Okay, here is an example of a layout that we could do here in our family. As you can see, we've got a bunch of different varieties of vegetables and herbs. We've got some cilantro, we've got some different types of lettuce, we got some spinach, and we have some sage. And as you can see, I've got it the cup spaced out so that we can have equal area or good area for these plants to grow into their own growth patterns, but not encroaching into the space of the other plants. Now, obviously, you got to take into consideration the space. You also got to take into consideration the pH levels of the water. And fortunately, most of these are all kind of within the same general pH level. So this is just a general setup. This isn't exactly what we're going to do, but just give you an idea of the variety of what my family would eat if we were to plant these specific things. Okay, a little trick that I learned is that if you put your drill bit into solution or whatever it is that you're working on, if you drill straight down with it going forward, you're actually going to drill, it's just going to be tougher. So if you back it out and then you can drill backwards, then it's not as messy. So let's quickly go through and we'll drill these holes here. Better remember that you take out the core or else it's not going to be able to put the whole thing in. Okay, there you go. We've got our holes cut now. Almost halfway through the project. All right, as you can see, we've got everything set out up here, and I put the net cups already in there, but I'll just demonstrate. Take the net cups, and they literally just drop down into the space. So when I lift this up, you can see that the net cups are basically just set right down into those holes, and they will sink down into the water. Now, when you fill this thing up with water, you want to make sure that you put the water to about this first line or just a little bit under. And this way, the rock wool that I talked about in the very, very first video will be absorbing the water, so it'll keep the root system nice and moist. And then the roots will actually literally grow through the screens here down into the solution. So in discussion with my family, we decided what we are going to grow here. And just kind of give you an idea, we're going to do a basil. We're going to do a tomatillo, and this is going to be an interesting one because this is going to require a support system to be able to hold it. We're going to grow a spinach, and we're going to grow an oregano, and they don't necessarily are going to go into these exact spots, but we're also going to do a lettuce. We're going to do another lettuce, so we have a variety of different types of lettuce for salads. We're going to grow a cilantro because we absolutely love cilantro, and we are going to attempt green beans. So as we get everything set up and put into the different positions, we're going to organize it so that one plant is not going to encroach upon the other plant, and this is what we're going to grow. And so hopefully this is something that is effective and you guys can see the success with all of this. And I'm really excited because it's one of my least favorite things to do is weeding. And with this type of gardening, there's basically no weeds. So I'm really excited about that. We do have to be a little careful about the bugs and the pests, but with it being indoors, hopefully that should be at an absolute minimum. All right, so the next step is to move on to the actual getting everything set up for putting the seeds into the rock wool, and that'll be what's coming up next. All right, so this next part is where we are going to cut out the 8 different cubes from the rock wool. It's a very simple process. Basically, they've laid it out into cubes. We have 8 spots on our first initial grow box, and so we're going to take out these 8 sections here. So again, just to kind of remind you, rock wool is made from rock, which is why they call it rock wool. But they make the rock so hot that it turns into a liquid, and then they spin it, and they kind of spin it like cotton candy. But the first thing we're going to do is we're going to soak this each individual cube for about 30 minutes in water. And it doesn't matter what kind of water that you put it in, the seeds are going to basically germinate based upon that. So the next step after we soak the rock wool is we're going to take the individual seeds and we're going to put them into the different holes.
And then after we put them into the individual holes, then we need to put it into some form of like a greenhouse type of an effect. Now, I've read and I've heard a couple different ways to do this. The first way would be to put it into a dark area, kind of like a seed when it goes into the ground. And the other thing that I've heard is to actually do the same thing, like where you put it into the rock wool, but instead of putting it into a dark room, but to actually put a grow light on it. So the first thing that the seed, or when it germinates, the first thing when the plant breaks through and comes up to the surface, that it sees the light. And so if it's expending all of its energy into trying to find light, then it's not growing those robust root systems that you need. So it's ideal to make sure that you have a form of a grow light on it or some natural light on it. So the second that it has that leaf exposed to the outside, that it has something that it can start putting all of its energy into growing its root system. So it doesn't have to reach or grow high to be able to reach that. So that's a long, kind of drawn out explanation. Basically what we're going to do is we're going to put the seeds in there, we're going to put the light on there, and we're just going to let it do its job. All right, so what we have here is just a little tote of water, and we're going to take the individual rock wool chunks and we're going to throw them in there, and we're just going to let them sit and absorb water for the next 30 minutes. So I'm not going to, I'll spare you the waiting for 30 minutes. All right, so it's been 30 minutes, and so what we're going to do at this point is we're going to drain the water out. So I'll be right back. Okay, so I've drained all the water out, and as you can see, they are very well hydrated at this point. And so what we're going to do at this next stage is we're going to separate them out into the different sections about what we're going to plant in there. So I have all the seeds that we're going to plant to the side. Now, a little tip and trick that we need to do, or that we learned, is to actually use a toothpick. And if you get the toothpick wet, then when you touch the seed, it sticks to the toothpick. So I'm going to give this off to my son, and he's going to go and get it wet while I pour some seeds into my hand. Now, it's recommended that we do about 2 or 3 seeds. So as you can see, they're little teeny things. And so we're going to take a seed. See how it's stuck to that? It's perfect. We're just going to shove it down into the hole. So we're going to remember that this top left one is going to be a red lettuce. All right, the next one that we're going to do is called a Vivian lettuce. And again, these seeds are super small. Came in its own little pouch. We'll do it in this kind of order, this way we can remember. All right, so we're going to put the Vivian lettuce in this one right next to it. And there is 3 of them. Now, one of the things that I forgot to do that I've also learned is we're going to basically push a hole and have it come right up through. Just kind of bore it out a little bit, And the purpose behind this is so that the roots or the seeds have a place to go. So now we've got a little channel all the way through. So we'll do the same thing with this one. And bore it out. We'll make sure that we do that with each of them. All right, so now we've got all of them there, and hopefully I didn't mess up these first two. We put the lettuce away. That'll be next on mine. And then what we're going to do is we'll do some oregano. And oregano seeds are absolutely itty bitty. I don't know if you can see how teeny those ones are. It's amazing that such a little seed can become such a big plant. So I'm going to put, I'll put all 6 of them. Now as these things germinate, and we reach a point where it's going to start crowding out. Basically what you do is you thin it out. You pull the ones that don't look like they are growing the largest or the fastest, and you leave only the strongest one in there. Next one we're going to do is spinach. I sure love spinach. Now these are definitely a much bigger seed. This one we may not need to do, or even can do, so I'll just use my fingers to shove these things into the hole, and then use the toothpick to push them deeper in. That is our setup. We've got up top, we've got the red lettuce. This one is the Vivian lettuce. This one is the oregano. This one's spinach. Here's basil, some cilantro, some tomatillo, and a green bean. So now the next step is to wait, and this is going to be a few days. I will come back and we will record the process of this and see how everything is looking. Okay, so just real quick, I wanted to show everybody basically the setup that we've got. This is our little greenhouse that we've created. I've labeled it, as you can see, again, red lettuce, Vivian lettuce, oregano, spinach, and then we got basil, cilantro, tomatillo, and green beans. So we'll come back here in about 4 or 5 days and we'll check and see what is the growth of it. But the process has officially begun, and hopefully in about a week we should see little starts growing out of the rock wool. So look forward to that.